Welcome back. This video will explain how to work with Section C of the HearForm home screen. Section C on the HearForm home screen includes the chart notes and hearing device slider panels. A slider includes dots like this here, where I can click the next button or the previous button in many cases, and then I can work with a separate note or a separate device or separate parts of a device, as we'll discuss in detail in just a minute. Generally, by default, you'll see the highest ranked or the newest chart note in this section here. We can also see that 20 notes are recorded for this specific patient. We can see the date that the note was recorded, the time, and who actually created the note right there on the left. We also have some buttons over here that allow us to see 3 of the most recent notes in a larger format, or 10 notes in a smaller format here. You can also see additional notes by scrolling up and down either of those two pop-ups. We can click the PDF button, and that asks, would you like to PDF print just the one note, one page, or all notes? So I'm going to click all notes, and it should pop up in just a moment. And this particular series of notes includes some additional information about the patient at the top. So I can scroll down and see additional comments right there. Let me close that note and show you a different approach. I can also click this, let me click OK there. I can click this printer icon to the far right, and it will give me notes that are designed more for printing. You can two-hole punch these notes and put them in a patient manila folder if you use that type of folder. So again, I can see that. I can scroll through and see additional notes like that. If you're not sure what to do when you get to a screen and you don't seem to have that many choices, always look up in the upper right and see if there's a continue button. There is in this case, and continue will then ask me a question, would you like to print the notes? In this case, I don't. So that's what those buttons are in this top bar here. I can also delete a note with sufficient rights, and it says, keep in mind, once it's deleted, it cannot be undone. There is no undo function. You may not have sufficient rights to delete a note anyway. We can also expand a note. For example, this note here has a lot of text. Yes, I could scroll through all that text here, but I can't see it all at once. And being able to see it larger like this might have some value. So now I see quite a bit more information about the note, including the date of the note, the time of the note, who created it, perhaps a subject, the type of the note, the date it was actually created, in case you need to change the date of the note to a different date. The date created and the time and created by here are not modifiable or editable. And the same is true of who last modified the note, if you have sufficient rights to modify. You can also scroll through using these buttons here that allows you to see additional notes like that. I believe, let me check to make sure, yes, you're not just seeing 5 notes in that case. You can actually see as many notes, all 20 notes that are available for Jennifer in this case. So I'll close that button. And that area is how you can work with chart notes. I should show you one other thing though. This little button in the upper left of that allows for quick entry of up to 50 different buttons that you've set up. You can colorize your notes. You can actually highlight them before you save them and change the style, the size, the font, whatever it is. And it makes it just a little bit easier to manipulate those notes for your needs. If I delete the temporary note, I can bring it back as long as someone else hasn't been deleting a note since then. So that's kind of not a fail-safe, but it reduces the likelihood of removing a note that you didn't intend to. I can make notes bold or plain, italicized, or underlined, that sort of thing. If you want to underline just an individual word, you can highlight the word, right-click, and then choose a style and underline just that particular word. So that's how you can work with this area here. Well, I'm going to save and close my note, but I could also append that temporary note to the highest ranked note if desired. So we'll just save that note, and there it is. And that's how I can work with chart notes. Now, another video will explain in greater detail how to work with the chart notes area, where I can actually insert hearing aid information. We don't put this on that smaller pop-up just to save some time, but there are other ways of working with chart notes that we won't discuss any further here. The lower part of section C shows us that we have 2 total devices recorded for this patient. As I scroll through, and Lois has 4 devices, but if he or she has additional, you can scroll up and down in that portal, as it's called, and see additional hearing devices. Now we call them devices instead of hearing aids because a hearing aid or instrument is certainly welcome in this area, but you may also want to include things like serialized ear molds or receivers or remotes or things like that if desired. Now we only have so much room on the home screen, so this slider panel allows us to scroll through different sections. Notice that the serial number for the device is recorded on the left every time. But then I can include the dome size, speaker size, tube size, venting. And if you want to edit some of the choices that are available in here, just scroll all the way down to the bottom, click the word edit, and then change the words that you want in whatever order. They're not automatically alphabetized, so put them in any order that you'd like there. I'm going to press cancel in this case. So as I scroll through, you'll see additional information, remote, serial, warranties, ear mold type. All that information is available here, and you can edit the choices in your drop-down list. If you hold the mouse over, I don't think you can see this in the video exactly everything, but I'm actually able to see it drops off at the bottom of the video. But I can see what's coming up in the additional dots right there. And again, I can go next or previous as desired. When I get to the end here, I can actually, with sufficient rights, delete that specific device if necessary. I can also rank in the previous to the last dot. I can rank those devices so that the highest ranked device appears at the top. If you want to temporarily put something to the very top and try to remember that it's temporary, you can change it to a 0. Otherwise, by default, all devices entered into the system will inherit the number 1. And if I change that to number 2, notice the right hearing aid is at the top. If I change that to a number 2, as soon as I click off to the side or below, then the right hearing aid goes underneath the number 1. I think that makes sense to most of you. When I go back here, or even in that any one of these other dots, I can run a report. I can copy a hearing aid from one line or row to another. I can create a new hearing aid or see a history, an unlimited number of events that may have happened to that hearing aid. For example, I sent the hearing aid to the manufacturer for repair. It came back. I refit the hearing aid. Each of these are different events, and then the hearing aid's broken again, so I had to send it back to the manufacturer. So you can keep track of everything that happens in that way. You can also run a report by clicking that button, and it shows me, based on the status of the device, all hearing aids that are at the supplier or demos or loaners or whatever it is, really an unlimited number of different kinds of statuses. And you would set up, I don't want to print my report, so I'll say no, you would set up your own status based on, I have to remember where the status is, right under the second dot. You would set up your own statuses here, just under the word edit, and really it can be almost anything that you want. But when we run the status report, I can't remember exactly, but I think it removes everything except for on patient. So we don't want, if you have 5,000 hearing aids in your system, I don't want a real big report. I just want to see anything that's not on the patient, for example. So by default, it's going to remove from that report anything that's listed as on patient. So that gives you a good idea of section C. Go ahead and play around with those areas, and I think you'll find those two sections very useful.